I met Emily at a mutual friend's wedding. It was one of those big, extravagant events where you barely know anyone except the couple getting married. I wasn't planning on staying long, just enough to congratulate my friend, have a drink, and make a polite exit. But then, I saw her. She was standing by the bar, laughing at something the bartender had said, her head tilted back just enough to show the dimples in her cheeks. She had this energy about her, effortlessly confident, completely in the moment. I remember thinking that she was the kind of woman who made life feel lighter, like she carried a piece of the sun with her wherever she went. I don't consider myself the kind of guy who makes bold moves, but that night, something pushed me forward. I walked up to her, made a half-serious joke about how the groom owed me money, and somehow, that was enough to get her to laugh. We spent the rest of the night talking about everything and nothing at the same time. It felt easy with Emily. No forced small talk, no awkward pauses, just two people who clicked. When the night ended, I knew I wasn't ready to say goodbye, so I asked if I could take her out for coffee the next day. She smiled, handed me her number, and said, "Make it dinner instead." From that moment on, we were inseparable. Emily and I fell into step with each other so naturally that it felt like we had always been together. Our first date turned into a second, then a third, and before we knew it, we were spending nearly every free moment together. She had this way of making the most ordinary days feel like an adventure, whether it was turning a trip to the grocery store into a game or convincing me to take last-minute weekend road trips with no set destination. I was the planner, the one who liked to have things figured out ahead of time. Emily, on the other hand, thrived on spontaneity. At first, I thought we might clash, but instead, we balanced each other out. She pulled me out of my comfort zone, and I grounded her when things got too chaotic. It worked. After 2 years of dating, we moved in together. We found a cozy 2-bedroom house just outside the city, a place with just enough space for the life we were building. The first few months were an adjustment, but even the little challenges, like deciding whose side of the bed was actually theirs or figuring out how to split the closet space, felt like moments we'd laugh about later. Marriage came a year after that. The wedding was small, just close friends and family, exactly how we wanted it. I still remember the way she looked walking down the aisle, completely radiant, smiling at me like we were the only two people in the world. I had never been more sure of anything in my life. Now, 5 years into our marriage, life feels settled in the best way. We have our routines, Saturday morning coffee runs, Sunday movie nights, and the occasional midweek dinner dates when work isn't too hectic. I work in marketing, managing campaigns for a mid-sized company, while Emily runs her own small business from home. She's passionate about what she does, and I admire that about her. Our friends often tell us we're one of those couples that just makes sense. And I always agree. Because with Emily, everything always has. If someone had told me years ago that I'd be living the life I have now, I wouldn't have believed them. Not because I didn't think I'd get married or settle down, but because I never thought it would feel this effortless. Being with Emily made everything in life feel a little lighter, a little easier. We weren't perfect, of course, no couple is. We had our disagreements, the usual things couples argue about. She liked to leave the lights on in every room. I was always turning them off. I preferred planning vacations months in advance. She wanted to book a flight on a whim. But none of it ever felt like a real problem. We knew how to meet in the middle, how to let go of the little things. Our house had slowly transformed into a home. The spare bedroom had become Emily's workspace for her business, a cozy mess of notebooks, samples, and sketches pinned to the walls. The living room, which had once looked straight out of a furniture catalog, now had signs of real life, a blanket always draped over the couch, half-burned candles on the coffee table, a stack of books she swore she'd finish but never did. It felt lived in, and I loved that. Evenings were my favorite. No matter how busy our days got, we always made time for each other at the end of it. Sometimes we'd cook dinner together, other times we'd order takeout and sit on the couch, watching whatever show we were obsessed with that week. She'd curl up next to me, stealing my blanket and half my food, and I'd pretend to be annoyed even though I never really minded. Looking at our life from the outside, I would have thought we were the kind of couple people envied, the ones who had it all figured out. And for the longest time, I truly believed we did. But sometimes, the things you don't see are the ones that change everything. For the longest time, I never had a reason to doubt Emily. If someone had asked me a year ago if I trusted my wife, I would have answered without hesitation completely. But trust is a strange thing. It can feel unshakable until the smallest crack appears, and then suddenly, you can't stop seeing it everywhere. The first time I felt that crack was on a Tuesday evening. I had gotten home from work a little later than usual, expecting to find Emily in her office or making dinner like she always did. Instead, the house was dark, and her car wasn't in the driveway. I checked my phone. No missed calls, no text saying she'd be out. That was unusual. Emily was the kind of person who always let me know where she was, even if it was just a quick, running errands, be home soon. An hour passed. Then another. When she finally walked through the door, she looked startled. Like she hadn't expected me to be sitting there on the couch, waiting. Where were you? I asked casually, not wanting to sound accusatory. She hesitated, just for a second. Oh, I grabbed dinner with Lisa after work. We got caught up talking. That should have been enough to satisfy me. But something about the way she said it felt off. I couldn't explain why, but I knew my wife. And something in her voice, in the way she avoided eye contact, told me she wasn't being completely honest. Still, I let it go. Maybe I was overthinking. Maybe I was just tired. But then it happened again. And again. Suddenly, Emily had plans I didn't know about. Late work meetings. Last-minute outings with friends. Nights where she came home later than usual, always with a perfectly reasonable excuse. And yet, something in my gut told me things weren't adding up. Then there were the little changes in her behavior. She started leaving the room whenever she took a call, lowering her voice just enough that I couldn't make out the words. She was glued to her phone more often, smiling at messages she never mentioned. One night, while we were watching TV, her phone buzzed. She picked it up quickly, but not before I caught a glimpse of the name on the screen. Mark. I didn't know any Mark. Who's that? I asked, keeping my tone light. She locked her phone instantly, setting it face down on the couch. Just someone from work. Nothing important. Again, maybe it was nothing. But that feeling, the one that started as a small crack, was growing into something I couldn't ignore. I told myself I was being paranoid. That Emily would never do something like that to me. But doubt, once planted, doesn't go away so easily. And deep down, I was starting to wonder if I was missing something right in front of me. I tried to shake it off. I told myself I was overthinking things, that I was being paranoid for no reason. Emily had never given me a reason to doubt her before, so why was I suddenly questioning everything? But once you start seeing the cracks, you can't unsee them. It wasn't just the late nights or the sudden secrecy with her phone. It was the way she started pulling away. She used to be affectionate, wrapping her arms around me when I came home, leaning into me when we watched TV, stealing kisses when she thought I wasn't paying attention. But lately, she had been distant. She still smiled, still acted like everything was fine, but something was missing. One night, I reached for her hand while we were sitting on the couch. She flinched. It was subtle, barely noticeable, but I felt it. Like my touch surprised her, like she wasn't expecting it. Everything okay? I asked. She forced a smile. Yeah, just tired. Tired. That was her excuse for everything these days. Too tired to go out, too tired to talk, too tired to be intimate. I wanted to believe her. But then there was the perfume. Emily had a signature scent, something light and floral, the same perfume she had worn for years. But one night, when she came home late, she smelled different. The scent was heavier, muskier, something I had never smelled on her before. Did you change your perfume? I asked. She blinked, then laughed. Oh, yeah. Lisa let me try one of hers. Thought I'd switch things up. Lisa. Always Lisa. I nodded, pretending to believe her, but something about that answer felt too smooth, too rehearsed. And the worst part? I couldn't shake the feeling that the scent wasn't hers at all. Then came the gym bag. Emily had started going to the gym more often, which in itself wasn't strange. She had always been into fitness. But one evening, as she was getting ready to leave, I noticed she was wearing a new workout outfit, leggings, and a fitted top that I had never seen before. New gym clothes. I asked. She smiled. Yeah, just felt like treating myself. It was a simple answer, but then I noticed something else. Her gym bag was sitting by the door, half-zipped, and inside I saw a lingerie set. Not a sports bra. Not workout clothes. Lingerie. My stomach dropped. I didn't say anything right away. I just watched as she grabbed her bag and kissed me on the cheek before heading out the door. And in that moment, I knew. I didn't have proof. I didn't have the full story. But something deep inside me told me that my wife, the woman I had built a life with, was lying to me. And once that realization hit, I knew I couldn't just ignore it anymore. Doubt is a strange thing. It starts as a whisper, a nagging little voice in the back of your mind. But if you ignore it long enough, it doesn't go away. It grows louder, stronger, until it's all you can hear. And now, it was deafening. Emily's behavior was only getting more suspicious. She was glued to her phone at all hours, tilting the screen away from me whenever I got too close. She started taking showers the moment she got home, something she never used to do. Her gym routine had become inconsistent. Some days she'd be gone for 2 hours. Other days she'd come back looking like she hadn't worked out at all. And then there was the scent. It wasn't just the new perfume anymore. Some nights, when she kissed me goodbye before heading out, she smelled completely different when she came back. It was subtle, but it was there, something musky, something distinctly not hers. I tried to push it aside. I told myself I was imagining things. But then, the excuses started piling up. One evening, she told me she was going to have dinner with Lisa. A few hours later, I casually texted Lisa about something unrelated, just a harmless check-in. Her response came quick. "Haven't seen Emily in weeks. How have you guys been?" I stared at my phone, my stomach twisting. I wanted to confront Emily right then and there, but what would I even say? That I was keeping tabs on her? That I didn't believe a word coming out of her mouth anymore? Instead, I sat in silence, the weight of her lie pressing down on me. I started noticing more things after that. She was dressing differently, tighter dresses, more makeup, like she was trying to impress someone. But when we went out together, nothing. No effort. It was like she had stopped caring what I thought. And then, her wedding ring. She had always worn it. Always. Even when she was working out. Even when she was just lounging around the house. But one day, as she was getting ready to run errands, I saw her slip it off and tuck it into her purse. I didn't say anything. I just watched. I was losing my wife, and the worst part was she didn't even seem to care. It happened on a night like any other. Or at least, it should have been like any other. I had left work early, something I almost never did. The office had a power outage, and instead of waiting around, my boss told everyone to head home. I remember checking my watch as I pulled into the driveway. 7:15 p.m. Emily wasn't expecting me. I stepped inside, dropping my keys onto the table. The house was quiet, eerily so. Usually, if Emily was home, I'd hear the TV, music playing, or at the very least, the hum of her voice on the phone. But that night, there was nothing. That's when I noticed it, a jacket tossed over the arm of the couch. Not mine. Not Emily's. It took me a second to place it, but when I did, my blood ran cold. It belonged to him. My best friend. A wave of nausea hit me, but I forced myself forward. My legs felt heavy, my heart pounding so hard I thought it might explode. The bedroom door was half open. I could hear something inside, muffled laughter, the rustling of sheets. I didn't want to see it. I didn't want to see it, but I had to. With a deep breath, I pushed the door open. And there she was. Emily. My wife. Tangled in bed with him. The moment she saw me, she gasped, yanking the blanket over herself. He scrambled too, eyes wide in shock, caught like a thief in the night. No one spoke at first. The silence was suffocating. Then he had the audacity to mutter, "Man, this isn't what it looks like." I laughed. Actually laughed. A bitter, hollow sound that didn't feel like my own. Emily's face was pale. Her lips parted like she wanted to say something, but what could she say? There were no excuses. No lies that could undo this. She had betrayed me, and she had done it with him. I clenched my fists, feeling every emotion crash down at once. Rage, heartbreak, disgust. But one thing was crystal clear. They needed to get the hell out of my house. I don't remember much of what I said in that moment. Rage has a way of blurring everything, turning words into pure instinct. All I know is that I yelled. I screamed. I told them both to get out. Emily begged, grabbing the blanket around her, trying to stumble through excuses. "Please, it's not it." But I wasn't hearing any of it. I turned to him, my so-called best friend. He had the nerve to stand there, completely naked, looking at me like I was the one causing a scene. "Get your clothes and get the hell out of my house." He hesitated, like he thought he had a right to say something, like we could somehow talk this out. But then he must have seen something in my face, because he grabbed his clothes and ran. Emily stayed frozen in place, her face streaked with tears. "Let me explain," she choked out. "It was a mistake. A mistake." The word nearly made me laugh. A mistake is forgetting an anniversary. A mistake is burning dinner. Sleeping with my best friend in our bed wasn't a mistake. It was a choice. I turned away, because if I looked at her any longer, I might lose whatever control I had left. "Pack your things and go." My voice was low, steady. I barely recognized it as my own. She cried. She pleaded. But I didn't care anymore. By the time she finally left, my hands were shaking. My heart was pounding so hard I thought I might pass out. But I wasn't going to stay in that house, not with the ghosts of what I'd just seen. I needed clarity. I needed advice. I needed someone to tell me how the hell I was supposed to move forward after this. So I went to the only people I thought I could still trust. My family. When I walked into my parents' house, my mother took one look at me and knew something was wrong. "What happened?" she asked, concern filling her voice. I sat down, feeling like my body was made of stone. Then, I told them. Everything. My father listened in silence, his face unreadable. My sister, who had always been protective of me, muttered curses under her breath. My mother looked shocked at first, but then, her expression shifted. And that's when I felt it. That something was off. When I finished, I expected outrage, anger, comfort. Instead, my mother hesitated. Then, in the softest voice imaginable, she said, "Sweetheart, maybe it's for the best." I blinked. "What?" My father sighed, rubbing his temples. "Look, son, you and Emily have been drifting apart for a while. Maybe this was inevitable." I felt like I had been punched in the gut. "Are you serious?" Then my sister spoke, the last person I expected to betray me. "Maybe you should just let them be together. I mean, maybe he's a better match for her." I stared at them, my mind reeling. They knew. They had known about the affair. And not only had they kept it from me, they were defending it. The people I trusted the most had sided with my wife and my so-called best friend. Something inside me snapped. I stood up, my chair scraping against the floor. "I can't believe this," I said, my voice shaking. "I came here because I thought you'd have my back. But you—" I shook my head, barely able to form words. "You already picked your side." My mother reached for me. "Sweetheart, please don't be upset." I stepped back. "Don't. Just don't." I had lost my wife. I had lost my best friend. And now, I had lost my family too. Without another word, I turned and walked out the door. I wasn't sure where I was going, but I knew one thing for certain. I was done with all of them. Betrayal has a way of stripping everything down to its core. No more illusions. No more pretending. Just raw, seething anger. I wasn't the kind of man who acted on impulse. I had always been the calm one, the reasonable one. But standing outside my parents' house, feeling the weight of every knife in my back, something inside me snapped. I wasn't going to be the guy who walked away with nothing. I wasn't going to be the one who lost everything while they got to play happy couple with my family's blessing. No, they had taken from me. And now, it was my turn. The first thing I did was lock Emily out. I drove straight home, my heart pounding so hard it felt like a war drum. The moment I stepped inside, the house felt different, like it wasn't mine anymore, like their presence had tainted it. But I wasn't leaving. Emily had taken enough from me. This house, this was mine. I went straight to my laptop and changed every account password, our bank, the Wi-Fi, her email, since we had shared the same recovery address once upon a time. Then, I did what I should have done weeks ago. I gathered every piece of her belongings, her clothes, her shoes, her makeup, her stupid little sentimental trinkets, and dumped them all into garbage bags. By the time I finished, the house was clean. No trace of her left. Then I changed the locks. The next thing I did was cut off my family. I had never gone against them before. Even when I disagreed with my parents or my sister, I always made peace in the end. But this was unforgivable. I sent one last message to our family group chat. "You made your choice. Now live with it. I'm done with all of you." Then I blocked every single one of them. They wanted to defend Emily? Fine. But they weren't going to see me anymore. But the real revenge? That came last. My family had always been generous with money. My father had a trust fund set up for emergencies. One he always said was for the family. I had access to it, just like my sister did. And guess what? My sister had been careless with passwords once upon a time. I wasn't about to take all of it. That would get me in legal trouble. But I took enough. Enough to make them feel it. Enough to remind them what betrayal cost. Then, just to twist the knife a little deeper, I went to my parents' house while they were out, walked inside like I still belonged there, and took back every gift I had ever given them. The expensive anniversary present? Gone. The high-end kitchen set I bought my mom last Christmas? Taken. Even the damn couch I had gifted them a year ago? I called a moving service and had it hauled away. I didn't care how petty it looked. They had chosen Emily over me. Now they could sit on the floor. By the time I was done, I felt lighter. Not happy, not yet, but at peace. They thought they could throw me away. They thought I'd just accept it. But now, they were the ones left with nothing. and I was finally free. Revenge was supposed to feel satisfying. It was supposed to make the betrayal hurt less, to fill the gaping hole that Emily, my best friend, and my family had carved into my life. And for a while it did. Locking Emily out, stripping my parents of everything I had ever given them, cutting them off like a dead limb, it all felt right. Like balancing the scales, like making sure they suffered even a fraction of what they had put me through. But after the adrenaline faded, all that was left was silence. The house, once filled with laughter and warmth, now felt cold. There was no Emily humming in the kitchen, no text from my sister asking if I wanted to grab a drink, no check-ins from my mother. It was just me, the faint hum of the fridge, and a past that no longer felt real. I had spent so many years thinking I had built something solid, a marriage, a home, a family. And now? Now I wasn't sure if any of it had ever been real at all. For days, I avoided my phone, ignoring the desperate messages piling up in my inbox. Emily, who had likely shown up to find herself locked out, sent long-winded texts begging me to just talk. My sister left a string of passive-aggressive voicemails about how I was being childish and needed to stop acting like a victim. Even my father, usually the silent, unemotional one, had tried reaching out. None of them were sorry for what they had done. They were just sorry they were facing the consequences. I thought about replying, about demanding an explanation, about asking my mother how she could look me in the eye and tell me that Emily and my best friend were meant to be. But what was the point? There was no explanation that would change what they had done. There was no reason that could erase the image of Emily and my best friend tangled together in my bed. Some betrayals are just too deep to forgive. So I packed a bag. Not permanently, not yet, but enough to get away. I took a few days off work and drove as far as I could until the city, the house, the memories, and all of them were far behind me. I found a quiet little motel by the coast, checked in under a name that wasn't mine, and let the sound of the ocean drown out the thoughts that wouldn't stop eating at me. I had spent so much time being angry, so much time wanting revenge. But now that I had it, I realized something. I didn't want to be angry anymore. I didn't want my life to be defined by what they did to me. They had already taken enough. I refused to let them take who I was too. As I stood on that empty beach, letting the cold wind bite at my skin, I made a decision. I wasn't going to keep looking back. I wasn't going to waste another second wondering why they had done it or whether they regretted it. I was going to let them live with their choices. And I was going to start over, even if I had to do it alone. Coming back home felt strange. The house wasn't a home anymore. It was just walls and furniture, a place where things had fallen apart. I had spent so much time here with Emily, building a life, believing in something that was never real. Now, standing in the doorway, I realized it was just a house. Nothing more. The first thing I did was grab a few boxes and start clearing out everything that reminded me of the past. The framed wedding photos, the souvenirs from our trips, the little notes Emily used to leave me in the kitchen, they all went into a pile. I didn't throw them away immediately. Not because I wanted to keep them, but because I wanted to choose when I let them go, instead of feeling like they still had power over me. I sat down with a beer that night, scrolling through my phone, finally reading the messages I had ignored for days. Emily's texts had gone from desperate to bitter. She had begged me to talk, to let her explain, to work through this together. When I didn't answer, her tone changed. "You're being dramatic. You think you're the only one hurting? You can't just erase me from your life." She was wrong. That's exactly what I was doing. My sister had tried too. You need to grow up. Families go through things. Stop acting like a child and just talk to us. I stared at the message for a long time before finally typing a response. "No. You made your choice. Now live with it." "I am." Then I blocked her. Blocked Emily. Blocked everyone who thought they could betray me and still have a place in my life. And just like that, I was free. Starting over wasn't easy. There were days when I still woke up expecting to hear Emily moving around the house. There were moments when I caught myself reaching for my phone to text my best friend before remembering he wasn't my friend anymore. The memories didn't disappear overnight. But slowly, things got better. I sold the house. It had too many ghosts, too many reminders. I found an apartment in the city, smaller, quieter mine. I focused on work, hit the gym harder than ever, and even started going out more. At first, it was just to distract myself, but eventually, I started enjoying life again. One night, while out with a few coworkers, I met someone. Her name was Rachel. She wasn't Emily. She wasn't loud and spontaneous. She didn't fill every space with energy. She was different. She was kind. She listened more than she spoke, and she had this quiet strength about her that made me feel steady. I didn't rush into anything. I wasn't ready for that. But for the first time in a long time, I felt like I wasn't just recovering. I was living. The past still existed, but it didn't control me anymore. Emily, my ex-best friend, my family, they had lost me. They had made their choices, and I had made mine. And for the first time since everything fell apart, I felt something I never thought I'd feel again. Hope.